Hello everyone, Ben here and welcome back to iRacing. Although our main focus this season will be on the USF Championship, and you can check out race 1 of the season in the top right hand corner now, together with the IMSA GT4 which will kick off for us next week, we're also going to be doing some guest appearances in different series throughout season 3. If you don't want to miss any of that, remember to subscribe to the channel, and if you find yourself enjoying this video, leave a like, it really helps me out. So today we're in race conditions for the very first time in the Radical SR8 V8. These things are packed with 380 horsepower, with plenty of downforce, but are nice and nimble too, all of which makes for a really engaging driving experience. We've got 14 laps at Watkins Glen to go. We've qualified in the third of 4 splits in 11th position, and we are underway. Somebody made a bit of a jump start. There's a big crash just ahead of us, and we've got to take avoiding action. But actually I think that helps us out a little bit because we made a poor start from the grid. It was my first time doing a standing start in these cars, so I was a little bit cautious, and it's meant that any positions we lost, I think we might have gotten back. We'll have to wait and see till the standings board updates at the end of lap 1. Now, what's going to follow in this race is definitely not a masterclass in how to drive these cars. I'm not kidding when I say these are among my very first laps in the car, but hopefully it does give a sense of just how awesome they are to race as we come through the bus stop chicane for the first time here. We're coming around the right hander now, just trying to feather the throttle in this first lap where the car is still not up to temperature. Down into the braking zone, third gear here most of the time, but again you can see the car is understeering into the corner there, hopefully just because it's the first lap and we're full of fuel for this race and on cold tyres, and that will get better as the race goes on. Hook the car up nicely into the right hander, uphill then onto the final straight before the end of the lap, and into a heavy braking zone downhill into the right hander. Try and get in nice and tight, but we've actually overshot that there. We missed the apex completely, but it looks as if some of the cars up ahead of us had similar issues, including a Ladro who's directly in front of us. So we've been able to maintain the gap up ahead to within half a second, and Augustus Klemp is behind us within a second of us as well. Looks like there's varying lines through this final corner of the lap as we come around. One car peeling off into the pit lane. That looks like it's Trujillo who's gone into the pit, so that's going to be at least one more position gained for us as we come now into the first corner for lap 2. And yes, we've gone up into 8th position, which, given we had a poor start in this race, I think we've got to be pretty happy with. We've got a very good way through that first corner, and we're right now in the slipstream of a Ladro up ahead. So we should close in here along the big straight into the pretty short braking zone for the chicane. We're not going to be close enough to make a move. In fact, I'm going to be quite cautious on the brakes and just essentially get a feel for how the car is manoeuvring in race conditions through these high-speed sections before I commit to any kind of overtaking move. It's a longer race than we're used to in the USF Championship. It should probably be around 25 minutes to get the race distance done here, and we're only a couple of minutes in at this point, so it really doesn't make sense to make any rash moves. And we've got plenty of cars vying for position up ahead of us here. So basically Wayne right there at the heart ahead of this queue is in 5th. Then there's De Silva in 6th, Aladro 7th, and ourselves in 8th. And Klemp is now a second behind us in 9th place. And Vasquez rounds out the top 10 a couple of seconds further back from him. But we're well bunched up here. It looks as if we do have the pace, at least in this early stage of the race, to run with these guys and possibly fight for an even higher position. We've made 3 spots off the grid, and actually if you look at the top left hand corner standings graphic, all the cars around us have made up spots as well due to that accident on the grid itself, which we will come back and look at in just a little while. But for the time being, we've got a brilliant run on a Ladro up ahead. As we cross the line to start lap 3, we're going to pull to the inside, but we're not actually close enough to make a move. But he's got his braking wrong into the first corner. He's ran very wide, which you can do here, but it's going to give him a slower exit. That is going to allow us to cement the pass, and we're up into 7th place at the beginning of lap 3, which is fantastic. Much more than I expected when I took to the grid for this race, having not really had any experience in this car up to that point. Let's then take a look back at the start. It's actually the white car in third place that has the big accident. He loses traction off the grid. That causes a couple of cars to run into him, others to have to get around the outside of him. And actually, it's one of the cars behind him that really has nowhere to go. As he just is presented with the car spearing back onto the track, he actually gets airborne as a result. And within seconds, maybe not even that, his race is ruined. Here's the 7-Up car slightly further behind, coming around the outside of us, but that leaves him nowhere to go, and he ends up having to have quite a pathetic crash into the stranded car because basically there was no room for him to get past. Fast forward then a couple of laps, and here's the move down the inside of Aladro as he runs wide into the first corner. That's going to give us the exit, and we're able to power out alongside him and then ultimately ahead of him into the uphill section where commitment is king, and you have to keep your foot planted as you go up and around onto the back straight, and we now are up into 7th place. We cut back then about 5 or 6 minutes later, a few laps later in the race, and we've managed to hold on to Wainwright up ahead, and De Silva and Brand are the two other cars you can see just a little way up the road. We haven't dropped Aladro behind us though, he's within half a second of us, so we are all running pretty close together here in the first half of this race, and I'm now just trying to think about when might I be able to close up on the back of Wainwright and potentially get into the top 6, but he himself is lining up a move on De Silva. He's got a better exit onto the start-finish straight. He's going to be alongside him as we've crossed the line, and surely now he's going to get this position done. And actually, sorry, forgive me, that is Brand that he's passed. Actually, Brand has dropped 2 positions then on that lap because he was running in 4th at the beginning of the previous lap. So now we have Brand right up ahead of us, and then Wainwright up ahead of him, and we might have a run on Brand ourselves here as we're going to peel to the outside and hopefully get the draft of Wainwright, who is running now up in 5th position. We're on the outside though, this is going to be a bit sketchy, so I'm going to get off the gas, see if Brand makes a mistake, which he does not, and so ultimately we have to just settle for tucking in behind him and living to fight another day. We get on the gas as early as we can through the long banked right-hander there into the downhill braking zone, into 3rd gear, try and get the car rotated, and then back on the gas again, and just about managed to hook that up there onto the curb on the outside. Again, try and brake deep into this corner, get the car rotated, but open up the steering in order to then power out onto the back straight. We are within half a second of Brand up ahead, but again it's going to be probably the first corner, possibly down into this corner, given it's a heavy braking zone as well, where an opportunity might arise. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to challenge him this time around, and we're getting a little bit scruffy heading into the back end of this lap. That's not the quickest way through that corner, as we were sawing at the wheel to try and get the car turned in. We're going to now come through the final corner. He's mounted a little bit of curb, that's going to slow him down, so we're going to be right on his rear wing as we come into the final corner of the lap, try and power out onto the start finish straight, but we've got Aladro behind us interested as well. We're into the draft of Brand up ahead of us, down into the braking zone then of turn 1, try and hook it up nicely into the apex, get a better exit than Brand, who's ran wide, which we do, so we're now going to be right on his rear wing as the draft helps us close in to him as we come up the hill. But I can't forget about Aladro either. He's 0.3 seconds behind us, so this could get pretty messy as we get into the chicane here. Are we going to get close enough to ultimately commit to a move? I'm not sure that we are. I think we're not going to have enough straight to get alongside him, so we back out of that. Try and prioritise a good exit. He gets a very squirrely moment through the chicane. That's going to give us the opportunity on exit. We've got the inside line. We just try and feather through, but then we get hit from behind and we've been hit again. Oh my days. So 3 of us running closely together. Ultimately a big accident there. We very fortunately ended up spinning into the right direction that we needed, and so have been able to continue, but we're certainly going to have damage from that accident. It just felt like we got a nudge from behind as we'd made the place on Brand that sent us around, and then we collected the car that was running behind us, Aladro, into that accident as well. We will take another look back at that when we get a moment to just see how that accident played out. I'm now at the moment just trying to see what sort of state is our car in. We've got a yellow flag up ahead though, some more action on track, and there he is. That's Palmer rejoining. We're going to try and get the run on Klemp up ahead of us, who's passed us in that incident, but he just was too close into the corner by the time we caught up to him to manage to get around. In fairness, I think he slowed for the yellow flag as well, so I didn't go all out to pass him there because that didn't feel like it would have been a reasonable thing to do. Let's then take a look back at how all of that drama played out. What we've gone to first here then is the move which sees Brand drop down a position to Wainwright, which then ultimately allows us to get onto the rear wing of the car up ahead, and you can see the closing speed that we have here as we come up the hill riding on our onboard camera, and we're just trying to stick first in Brand's draft, and then we think, can we actually get alongside him using Wainwright's draft up ahead? We're going to come into the braking zone, but it's just going to be too late for us to be able to hold it down the inside. I didn't fancy running too wide through that corner. It almost certainly would have ended up with both of us having a big accident. And then on the very next lap, we're still stuck behind Brand. We've got a Ladra who's scrapping behind us, trying to find a way through as well. So there's three of us vying for position into this first corner. We are on the brakes nicely. That's going to give us a better exit. And again, we're going to close in the draft as we go up the hill and onto the very long straight at the top. And that then is going to give us a decision to make. Can we ultimately force our way through into the chicane, or are we going to just hold back and see if Brand outbreaks himself and makes a mistake? We ultimately err on the side of caution, go for the latter approach. He gets through cleanly, but then he does have a big moment on the exit of the corner. That's then going to give us the opportunity into the downhill right-hander. We're very cleanly alongside, and then you can just see he clips our rear end there by the looks of things, and we get hit again by a Ladro behind us. We're very fortunate not to get collected into a bigger smash, and we are then able to rejoin the track very, very quickly there. We could have been in the barrier, but let's take a closer look then at the actual impact itself. Here again, riding on board with us, we get the tap from behind, and you can see the car just goes around, and then we get an even bigger hit from a Ladro who can't react. Let's take a look on the onboard from Brand's car next to just see what he sees of this accident and whether we do ultimately get tagged. Well, that's inconclusive actually. It doesn't look as if there's physical contact made. Maybe the onboard of a Ladro will tell us more. Oh, and it looks like it's netcode. You see the rear end damage appear on our car, but it doesn't look as if there's actual contact made. So we get the sort of hit from behind, but without actually having been ran into. Yep, there you go. It is definitely netcode, and that's really unfortunate. And it does mean we are carrying damage then into the second half of this race. So we've rejoined then. Somehow we're still in 7th place. And our pace hasn't been too badly affected, so we're just trying to keep on the back of Klemp up ahead. Palmer, who was running in 3rd, and if you remember caused the yellow flag to come out earlier in the race, is behind us in 8th place. So unless he's carrying some significant damage, he's got some good pace, so I'm expecting that he might arrive on the scene at some stage as we're just following Klemp around the right-hander here and getting onto the straight once more. We haven't really been close enough to challenge. Our pace is pretty similar. You'll see in the top left-hand corner there, we're running a 43.2, Klemp is a 43.4, so we're going to need to just keep consistent and try and close the gap. But actually, we don't need to, because he's got it all wrong on the exit of the corner, and he's speared off into the wall, right nose first into the barrier, and that is going to be a big hit for him. And actually he's dropped all the way out of the top 10, and that is going to promote us up into 6th position. Unbelievable drama at all stages of this race. We've managed to just about survive all of those moments and are somehow running in the top 6 in our very first race in this Radical car. Given we've got a little bit of time then to just reflect, I've got to say the car drives fantastically. It's very planted, feels high downforce, feels powerful, but it does feel nimble. You can get the front end turned in to these corners and it responds really, really well. There's quite a nice little bit of lift-off oversteer that you can manage through some of the corners to kind of maintain your speed through them. And this is definitely going to be a car I'm going to look to drive a lot more of through the course of this season, even if we're not competing in the full championship. And a quick shout out to Watkins Glen here. One of my favourite circuits to drive in any case, but it's really well done here in iRacing, I've got to say. It looks fantastic, it feels fantastic. Let's take a little look back then at that accident that happened just up ahead of us, and look, it just gets on the gas a little bit soon, and that is how quickly you can go from driving really well to having a very big shunt. This then is the action that then takes place behind us. Palmer in the car up ahead of Vasquez as he's coming back through the field, and Vasquez is in the blue car, is going to make the move into the right-hander and get up ahead of him into 7th place, and that's us there just coming up the top of the hill at the top of the screen, and I am the next car up the road from him, and it looks like he's got some pretty good pace. So I'm now going to be conscious in these last couple of laps of the race that we might come under a bit of pressure. He's closed the gap, Vasquez, to around just under a second. It was half a second just before, so I now need to be on my toes because that gap has come down from about 3 seconds just a couple of laps ago. I need to just keep consistent, not get too raggedy. My lap times have been okay, and we're running not a dissimilar pace to Vasquez, but I am conscious now that I can feel the tyres going off a little bit. I'm struggling a little bit ultimately for pace as we get towards the end of this race, and if he's in our draft coming onto the back straight, then we're going to be in trouble. He's just set a 43.1, which is about a tenth of a second quicker than us, and in our rear view mirror it looks like he's got a much better run through T1 and up the hill here. He's closing in big time. He's within 0.3 of a second. That is going to put us under all kinds of pressure here as we come down the back straight. It looks like he might be running a reduced downforce setup as well, because he's got so much more speed than we do down the straight, and yep, he's already made the position as we get into the braking zone to the chicane. I'm going to try and stick with him to see if I can't put a bit of pressure in the middle section of this lap to get that place back, but unfortunately it looks as if that move is going to be done, and we're going to be down into 7th position as we come towards the end of this race. He had an unbelievable amount of speed down that straight. I do think some of that will have been setup related, as well as having a better run on us plus the draft through the first part of the lap. But nevertheless, at least we didn't get involved in anything too sketchy as he overtook us. We were able to see that move happen without us losing a huge amount of time to Palmer behind, who's still just a couple of seconds back. And 7th place would represent a very decent finish for us as we're coming through towards the end of the race. Certainly way better than I'd hoped for, as I decided relatively last minute to jump into this race session. As we come around then into the final corner, once again just trying to hook that apex up and get a better exit than the car ahead. The white flag is out, so we've only got one more lap then. This is going to be the final lap of the race. Brand, who we were racing with earlier in the session, has found his way up onto the podium positions. He's in 3rd now. He's managed to pass De Silva and Wainwright back 4 position there, so he's had a fantastic second half of the race. We then are about 1.1 seconds back on Vasquez. We might get a distant tow here and be able to close in on the back straight. It looks as if Palmer's dropped back. He's now a good 4 seconds behind us, so I'm hoping now it is just going to be a battle for 6th place if we can get onto the rear wing of Vasquez before the end of the lap, rather than needing to think about defending at the same time. We try and hook this corner up nicely down into 4th gear to just get a little bit more rotation, and then back up into 5th, just about avoid running too wide there, into the braking zone, then into 3rd, get the car rotated and back on the gas nice and early. We have a good journey through that corner there actually, and we're closing the gap to about 0.8 now. He's run slightly wide and got his tyres up onto the grass, and that's going to give him traction problems through this corner. We're closing the gap even further. We're now about 0.6 behind, but I just don't think it's going to be close enough unless he makes a big mistake into one of these final corners. We get into the braking zone, get the car down into 2nd gear, hug that curb nicely, but don't clip it because that'll unsettle the car. Again, we're just 0.6 seconds behind. He's running a little bit raggedy into these final corners. That's a wide exit from both of us there, but we get the better exit. He's within half a second now. Can we get the throttle feathered through this final corner more effectively? We are still closing in on him. We're going to get down into the final corner. We overshoot it slightly, and we are now going to have to settle for 7th place. We're going to come home just about half a second behind Vasquez. He didn't pull away, having overtaken us with just a couple of laps to go. But nevertheless, 7th place, a really, really good finish. and just a fantastic driving experience in these cars. Let's take a look back then at the move that cost us 6th place. You can see the overspeed that Vasquez has here as we come up the bank and up onto the straight. At this point I'm a sitting duck really. I mean, I could have come to the inside to block off the inside line, but I think he would have had the speed to get me around the outside and I would have been pinched on the apex. And you can see there he is already past us into the short braking zone of the chicane. And then finally then, here's the final corner of the race. After 14 laps of racing, we come home 7th, having qualified in 11th, and it's just a hugely enjoyable experience. I can't recommend getting on to this server highly enough. I hope you've enjoyed the race. If you have, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.